So we just received the partial reveal of Season 12 of Diablo 4, also getting the information on when we're going to be getting the PTR. And this post is more specifically about everything we're going to be seeing within this PTR. Now, before we get into what's actually coming with the PTR, I want to go over a few things. First off, all of the content we're going to be going over and everything coming with this PTR is not everything coming with Season 12. This article specifically details that they will be revealing more things coming with the season closer to the launch of Season 12, and I think there's actually going to be some pretty massive reveals pretty soon, because this PTR is going to be held from February 3rd to February 10th. And I don't think it's a coincidence that on February 11th, we're getting a Diablo showcase for the 35th anniversary Blizzard and the 30th anniversary of Diablo. And it just happens to be the day after the Season 12 PTR ends. So I think there's already some really interesting stuff we're going to be able to test on this PTR, but I think there's also going to be some pretty massive reveals the day after this PTR ends. Now, the main theme and mechanic this season is going to be built around is a kill streak system. Now, we've had this in Diablo 3. We also have it on one of the mercenaries in Diablo 4, but those are much lesser versions of this kill streak system. This one is actually going to have gameplay implementations and systems and items tied around it, besides just being like a counter that can give you some additional experience, like what would happen in Diablo 3. So the kill streak system changes the way you play across every activity in Diablo 4. Slaughter your enemies in quick succession to begin your kill streak. As your kill streak begins, a pop-up will start tracking your kill count. Once the kill streak begins, there'll be a short period of time before your kill streak begins to deplete. Continue your kill streak with merciless pace. Refresh your kill streak timer with additional kills, direct damage, or an initial damage over time application. So you'll be able to keep stacking up your kill streak with other things outside of actual kills. And kill streaks are marked by 5 distinct tiers based off the current streak's total. So kill streak, carnage, devastation, bloodbath, and massacre. So basically you keep stacking up your kill streak, you'll get to different tiers. And again, these different tiers are going to tie into a bunch of other things. So when the timer bar fully depletes, the kill streak is over. Experience and seasonal reputation are gained at the end of the kill streak. And just based upon that one line, there are probably going to be some pretty crazy ways to cheese a ridiculous amount of seasonal reputation and experience. Hopefully that's the case, because that could just be really fun. The amount of experience and seasonal reputation gain are based on the total number of monsters slain during the kill streak, with a bonus based on the kill streak tier reached. Note, seasonal reputation will not be present on the PTR, and if you should perish while in the kill streak, it will immediately end without rewards. So basically there's a kill streak system, it's tiered, you have multiple things that allow you to continue to be in that kill streak outside of kills, and then you get more and more rewards the higher tiers you go into and the more kills you get. And then we have a new item type. So it says Rain Crimson with a Bloodied items. So Bloodied items being a new item type coming into the game. So Bloodied items are a new item quality you can harness in combination with your kill streaks to heighten the bloodshed. Bloodied items have affixes which skill and power based off your kill streak tier. And any item that can drop can be bloodied, and the item quality tag is not exclusive, so an item can be, say, ancestral and bloodied. So bloodied is essentially just another modifier that can be on any piece of gear. And bloodied affixes come in 3 different categories: rampage, feast, and hunger. So Rampage gives you an increase in power based off your kill streak tier. This only applies to armor, so any armor piece can have this. And an example is you get 7% more move speed per kill streak tier in your current kill streak. And there are 5 tiers, so you could get a massive amount of move speed increase. That's just one of the examples they're giving here. They also showed some items that we'll also go over. Then we have Feast. This applies combat bonuses based off total kills in your current kill streak. So keep in mind, Rampage was the tier, Feast is off the kills, and Feast only applies to weapons, so this is going to be the really strong one. And example are every 40 kills in your kill streak, reset 1 random cooldown. So basically every 40 kills you would reset a cooldown. These bonuses are constant and are not tied to kill streak tier. So again, it's based off of the amount of kills, not the tier. Then we have Hunger. Customizes reward offerings which scale with killstreak tiers. So again, this one is tiers. An example, elite kills will drop runes more frequently. This only applies to jewelry. So this one's actually pretty interesting on jewelry pieces. We will have more rewards. And this is also going to be absolutely crazy. This is something that I think is maybe the coolest part about this. Obviously, getting more stat increases and more different things based off the tiers or kills is really cool. But based upon the tier you're in, say killing an elite will give you more loot is actually incredibly cool. And based upon this, I think there may actually be a lot of content that isn't as utilized normally that may be incredibly strong with specifically these hunger affixes. They also did show off 3 different items. So we have a pair of gloves that has a bloodied roll on it, and the bloodied roll is an additional affix that is red. And this one is plus 6% resource cost reduction per kill streak tier. So you can have 5 tiers, so that's some pretty heavy resource cost reduction. Then on this weapon, we have Feast. So every 25 kills, gain berserking for 6 seconds. This is also going to be a really interesting thing that we go over soon, where they are allowing other classes through different items to get effects from other classes. So berserking is primarily from barbarians, but now there are different things that will allow all other classes to get berserking. Then on a necklace, we have Hunger, 10% increased chance for runes during your kill streaks. And this should also be based upon the tier you're in, because Hunger is based upon tier. Fully stacked up, this would be a 50% increased chance for runes. So realistically, if you're saying content that you can constantly be killing things, let's say you're in a somewhat fast build and running through a Helltide, where you can maybe indefinitely keep your kill streak up, you would just have a 50% increased chance for runes at like all times. So that could absolutely be pretty crazy. I'm also wondering if these bloody rolls are going to be able to be increased based upon giving your items more quality through masterworking, and if they can also be a greater affix, because they are just shown as another affix on your items. And then we have Bloodied sigils. So evoke the power of the burning hells and set a fearsome combatant on your trail. Bloody sigils unlock your ability to increase the heat and increase the ferocity of gameplay while rewarding you handsomely for this increased effort. Nightmare dungeons, infernal hordes, and lair bosses each have bloody sigils. And lair boss is actually really interesting because this is the first time we're going to have sigils for lair bosses. And we actually do get to see one of these lair boss sigils as well. And these potent sigils only become available in Torment 1. So they do show off a lair boss sigil. So it's Ancient's Seat lair boss sigil. So transform this place into a bloodied lair with greater challenge and greater rewards. Now it's in Ancient Seat in Fractured Peak, and it has 2 affixes. So it has Nightmare Portal. While in combat, Nightmare Portals open randomly near players, pouring out dangerous mantras. That's actually a really cool one. And then we have Relentless Butcher. Enemies are more stronger here, and the butcher relentlessly hunts you. Now, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to work. This still sounds like a dungeon sigil, but it's a lair boss sigil. So I'm not exactly sure how these are specifically going to work, but these new sigils seem to be just much more juiced up versions of the content. So each bloodied sigil carries a bloodied affix. Relentless Butcher. The infamous purveyor of human charcuterie hunts you endlessly, hounding your every move. Should you manage to fell the butcher, he will immediately return. He will never cease. So it sounds like the butcher is always going to be there. I'm assuming always chasing you, or maybe coming in, you kill him, and then he'll come in again somewhere else. This does not replace the existing chance to have butcher spawns. There's a chance to fight both butchers at the same time, and expect the activity in the bloodied sigil to be around a torment tier higher in difficulty than your current torment tier. That's really interesting. So we can turn nightmare dungeons, infernal hordes, and lair bosses into essentially torment 5, which is also really interesting. I wonder how that's going to scale, because going from a torment tier to a new one is a massive increase. I think from what I've heard, it's like a 20,000% increase from like torment 1 to 4 or something crazy like that. So going from one torment tier to the next is an absurd difficulty increase. We just don't really notice it because of how strong we are in general. So presumably going from 4 to 5 will actually be a massive leap, and that's something that's actually really cool. Hopefully, this content will be difficult anytime we have one of these bloodied sigils activated. And it does also say that these bloodied sigils reward this significant challenge with guaranteed bloodied items. So I'm wondering if it's just all items in these sigils are bloodied, or if it's just like at the end of completing one, you get a bunch of guaranteed bloodied items. Now we are getting a handful of new unique items, but what's unique with this batch is that all of these items are either usable by all classes or usable by a handful of different specs, and that actually makes a few of them really interesting. So first off, all of these items, whether it's usable by all classes or only specific classes, all seem to be focused around giving other classes effects that they normally can't get. So let's say the first one here is the Blood Mad Idol, which is a unique amulet. The special is you are always berserking, but take 200% increased damage as burning over 8 seconds. While burning, berserk grants an additional up to 125% increased damage. That damage is multiplicative. So basically you're always berserking, which will have its own effects that berserk normally gives you. Then you'll take a bunch of additional damage, but it is over time as burning, so you should be able to survive it more easily. But also anytime you take any damage and get that burning effect on you, you will then be taking massively increased damage. It's up to 125% multiplicative, so that damage increase is absurd. And then we have something like the Thousand Eye Reaver, which is a unique one-handed axe. This is only usable by barbarians, druids, necromancers, and paladins, and the special is moving grants ferocity, and maximum ferocity is increased by up to 3. Ferocity also increases movement speed by up to 8% per stack. Now ferocity is normally a spirit-born only effect that just gives you stacking up increased attack power. So this is basically going to unlock this effect for other classes, give them increased attack speed. This will increase its max stacks as well. And I think it's 5% attack speed normally per stack with a max of 4 stacks. So 20%. And then you can get another 15 if you get the max roll of this. This also gives you increased movement speed per ferocity stack, which at 8%, which if you could have 7 stacks at 8% per stack, that's also a massive movement speed increase. Hopefully this movement speed is above the normal cap, but either way, all of these new uniques are really interesting in that they're basically allowing classes to have effects they normally wouldn't be able to have, potentially opening up some really interesting options. Now, what's also interesting is that if you go down in the patch notes, because there were some patch notes with this, one of the lines on new uniques is that all new uniques this season are dropped by the new Butcher layer boss. So it seems like we are also getting just a new layer boss added to the layer boss system, which is the Butcher himself, which is also pretty interesting. I'm hoping they make the Butcher just like incredibly hard. Like maybe he's a tier of his own and he's just crazy difficult. And I think also based upon that these new unique items that aren't always permanent addition to the game means that this new Butcher is just going to be a permanent addition to the game, which will also be really cool. Getting new layer bosses is always pretty good. And it will also make target farming any of these new uniques generally pretty easy. And let's say I had a bunch of other items, but there are a good chunk of new uniques. So more than likely the Butcher is only going to be dropping these new like class agnostic uniques. And that's pretty much all the information we have for this upcoming PTR. Now keep in mind, like I mentioned at the start of the video, they did already detail in this article that there is more content with this season. They're just going to announce it closer to launch, and more than likely with the timing of the upcoming showcase for Diablo as a franchise being the day after this PTR, there will most likely be some pretty big new reveals, whether it be shadow drops or new stuff coming with season 12 or just a showcase of the new expansion. Whatever it'll end up being, I'm sure they will show off some new stuff coming with season 12 that we don't know about coming with this PTR. And we also don't know what of this content is going to be permanent additions to the game. Like we don't know if killstreaks are going to be a permanent addition to the game. We don't know if bloodied items will be a permanent addition. Presumably if killstreak is just a permanent addition, bloodied items would also be, but we don't know on either of those. And based upon how bloodied sigils work as well, presumably if one of these things is permanent, they all are. And if they're season specific, they will probably all be. But the new Butcher layer boss and the new uniques, we know those are going to be permanent. So based upon what we're going to be able to test, the season I think is going to be pretty interesting. We obviously have more content that we don't know about yet, but based upon what we do know, they're doing some really interesting things that I think are going to change up our gameplay a lot. Like, I think the killstreak system itself, just mixing with these bloodied item affixes, is actually going to change what we're doing in the season, specifically for like experience and reputation, even other rewards. And it's very much going to change how we're actually playing. I think this is absolutely going to be the season of speed farming builds. Being able to move around as quickly as possible is probably going to be a pretty big premium with this season. But that's all I want to go over, so thanks for watching.